have to register your asylum claim.
Yeah.
Now, I should say that ideally you'd be wanting to get legal advice before you even claim asylum.
Yeah.
Because during an asylum, they call it a screening interview,
Yeah.
they will be asking fairly basic questions about how you got here and the basic questions about why you're claiming asylum.
Yeah.
But even at that early stage, everything's recorded, everything's taken down. So if you're saying something which you later maybe are not totally consistent about, that will be held against you. So you need to be careful even at that early stage of registering your asylum claim.
Yeah, so a screening interview sounds quite daunting. Would I
It
have
is,
you
yeah.
with me, as someone like yourself?
Yeah, so well, so it kind of depends what your funding is. So if
Yeah.
it's legal aid, then unfortunately that initial screening interview itself is not covered.
Yeah.
The stage after that is to have your main asylum interview. And again, for that, for children, they are covered by legal aid.
Yeah.
Otherwise, generally, legal aid doesn't cover attendance by a legal representative at that interview.
Okay, yeah.
However, what a good legal representative should be doing is preparing you really well before the interview,
Good.
making you familiar with what questions might come up, and perhaps preparing a witness statement in advance of the interview as well.
Yeah, so that's reassuring. So you're there with us at every step of the way if we
Yes.
wanted to go through it.
That's right.
What happens next then?
Okay, so you have your main interview. You may submit a witness statement as well, and then you may have evidence to submit to support your claim. So, if you've come from a certain country where there might be documentary evidence to support your case,
Yeah.
or there might be objective evidence. There might be country reports from academics that support your claim of persecution. So you get all this off to the Home Office, and then you're really waiting for a decision. And unfortunately, particularly at the moment, that has taken a long time to come through. And then you either get a positive or a negative decision.
Yeah, I can imagine with that witness statement, it's probably a lot of back and forth between yourselves and the client just to agree that, and it's a lot of reiterations until the client is happy with it. I can
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they can be really detailed, and they should really have quite a bit of detail in them. So that can be probably the biggest single part of your job as an asylum caseworker.
Out of interest, what's the longest you've ever drafted?
We're definitely getting on to 30 plus pages.
Ooh,
so yeah, pretty significant. Yeah.
Thank God we've got computers. You're not having to
Absolutely,
write all
yes,
that.
absolutely. Yeah.
What happens next then, from that point of view?
Okay, so everything's with the Home Office. They're then taking their time to make a decision, and either you're going to be granted refugee status, or if you're less fortunate, you'll have a refusal, and then the sort of standard next step would be to lodge an appeal with the Immigration Tribunal against that refusal.
Great. And then does that then come to an end, or is there more after that?
Well, so you'd have your case put before an immigration judge, and that's, for many people, that's their big sort of second chance to succeed with their case. They can normally introduce new evidence in the appeal, and you'd normally have a specialist, either an immigration solicitor or a barrister, present the case in the tribunal. And then if your appeal, the judge has to make a decision on your appeal, and if it's positive, again, you'll be granted refugee status. If it's refused, then you can normally appeal onwards to the higher tribunals and onwards.
What kind of percentage normally do you go on to the higher courts?
I mean, yeah, it is interesting. I think currently most cases are succeeding by the time you get to the first tier tribunal. So I believe it's over half at the moment. I mean, your prospects do decrease, unfortunately, if you don't succeed at the first tribunal hearing. There's a kind of like tapering off. It gets less likely the higher up you go.
Yeah, and I suppose it's very costly to keep going, so eventually...
It can be, if you're not covered by legal aid.